Welcome to week 12 of the course. This is the last week of formal lectures. The next 3 weeks, 13, 14, and 15, will involve the business plan itself, having presentations which are optional, but encouraged. Give you an opportunity to use the technology and see how the plan can be presented. And of course, in the last week, I will be giving you feedback on your individual plans, and hopefully that will give you some guidance and help you if you really do want to start a new business. Again, we've had a number of businesses start, not as a result of the entrepreneurship course, but more because the person wanted to do it, and this gave them the incentive to make it happen. And they said, hey, I got the business plan written, why not do it? So, maybe your opportunity. During this week, we have 3 topics that round out the course. Ethics, as it applies to the entrepreneur. Not a whole lot different from management, general management ethics, but a little different twist perhaps. The idea of going public, and also talking about stock options, stock in general, or equity involvement in the company. And lastly, what do you do when you want to get out of the business? When you decide you want to retire, do something else, whatever. How do you get out? So we're going to look at that in 3 separate modules. For this first module, 12A, we're going to look at ethics. And here's our objectives. How do you apply this in an entrepreneurial environment? You want to be a winner, but yet you want to do it ethically. And we'll also talk about social conscience, being green, as it were, and again, doing things for the benefit of humanity and society. Ethics in the textbook is kind of threaded throughout the 7th edition. If those of you working with an earlier edition, if you are, I suggest you look in the table of contents, in the index rather, and under ethics, and read those pages or sections that talk about ethics. In the 7th edition, which is the current edition and the one I recommended, I suggest you look in 3 places. Page 17 of the textbook has an article about ethics and social responsibility of entrepreneurs, or a section on it, about business ethics, and talks a little bit about the background and why it's important. On page 18, it has a vignette, a little section on ethics as it applies to a smaller company. In addition, page 60 in the text has a vignette, again, another small profile excerpt from another text about comparison of managers and entrepreneurs in ethics, and I think it's worth looking at. And lastly, I would point you to page 529 of the textbook. Again, there's a small article there about the increasing interest in small business ethics, and I think it's worth taking a look at. Well, every company, every good company, every company that expects to get ahead, stay in business, grow, have a good brand name, have a good reputation, has to have a strong ethical culture. The best way is to lead by example. You set the tone of the company. you as the leader set the example that people should follow. And typically in a small company, that's that's easy to do, but it also puts a lot of responsibility on you. The reason is you're very visible. If you're the chairman of General Motors, most of the people who work for the company never see you, have never met you. Maybe they see you in a news clip or on a video on their computer or something like that, but they don't have day-to-day involvement with you. In a small company, in an entrepreneurial venture, you are working hand in hand with your employees. They know what's really going on. They know if you are telling them to be ethical, but in reality, you're not. They'll see right through it. Okay, you are much more transparent because you are closer to them. So again, you have to set a good example, and you have to really mean it. All right, don't try and give the people some garbage that they say, hey, he or she doesn't mean it. Well, hopefully you've had ethics in prior courses. You may have had a complete course in ethics by this point. Usually ethics is woven into most of the courses. There are basically two kinds, and if you think back to if you went here at NJIT and took something called Principles of Management, which is a course I also teach, if you took a course like that, you should have heard that there are basically two ways of approaching ethics. One is a compliance-based ethical approach, and the other is an integrity-based approach. Compliance-based is the weaker and older of the ethics codes. It basically looks at the question of, is it legal? It's trying to prevent unlawful behavior, punish the wrongdoers, toe the mark. Make sure you don't get into trouble. On the other hand, integrity-based codes of conduct establish a set of guiding values for the company. Shared accountability. Everybody is responsible. Everybody has the ability to blow the whistle and say what's wrong and say, hey, wait a minute, we shouldn't be doing this. This is polluting the environment. This is unfair to our customers, unfair to our workers. And it comes from within. And again, doing what's right. That's the important thing. Part of it is you want to make sure that everyone in the organization understands what's expected of them, what's expected of the company, what's right, what's wrong, and help the employees deal with ethical dilemmas. The posting on ethics for this week deals with several ethical dilemmas, two to be exact. I'm sorry, three ethical dilemmas. And I'm going to ask you for your opinions on how you would handle these things. Again, guidance is what's right, what makes you feel good. And I'm not talking about the fact that you're making money. I'm talking about you and your inner self and your conscience. Does it make you feel good, make you feel proud of yourself? Well, from the entrepreneur's standpoint, we've looked at pretty much have already discussed that you want to be an aggressive risk taker. That's the idea of entrepreneurship, is to be innovative, take chances, try something new. We also want to challenge the paradigms, if you remember that word from the silly games. Challenge the existing paradigms. Just because it's never been done this way doesn't mean it can't be done. And of course, you got to be smarter and tougher than your competitors. And we talked about setting expectations, and we'll come back and visit that again in a moment. Okay, given that, can we do it ethically? Can we be aggressive? Take no prisoners kind of mentality. Let's go for it. Go for the gold. Be a winner. But can you do it ethically? Is it possible? I believe it is. Okay, and there are some people who say that lawyers should be the last one to talk about ethics, because most lawyers have some questionable ethics, or some lawyers may have questionable ethics. But I believe that you can do this ethically. I believe it even as an attorney. I believe I am ethical. I have built a reputation over more than 30 years of being very ethical and not lying to people. Just make you feel good. All right, do what's right. Well, there's a couple of views. One is from Andy Grove, the founder of Intel, and this is the name of his book, Only the Paranoid Survive. And, I guess there's some value there. You have to keep looking over your shoulder at all times in a business environment, looking for the new competitor coming in, looking for one of your existing competitors to get an edge on you, looking for the latest disaster to happen. Constantly be on edge and be aware of what's going on. However, that does not have to drive you to do things that are not right, not ethical. The other view is from Dr. Carlson. Again, don't sweat the small stuff, and it's all small stuff. Premise there being, take a look at the decision, take a look at the impact of what you got to do, and think about it from a long-term perspective. And, if you let something slide, if you give a customer an extra break, if you give your competitor an advantage that maybe you shouldn't have, is it really going to be the end of the world? Probably not. If you do the right thing, you'll survive and benefit. What are ethics? Here's the definition. Business practices in light of human values, a set of behavior and morals. Well, at stake is your company's image and your personal image. Many people who run a company go on to do something else afterwards. We'll talk about that in 12C in the exit plan. If you have built a personal reputation that you can be proud of, you will probably be successful in whatever you do. And of course, the first thing is your company's image. Be an ethical company. Have a brand that you can be proud of and a reputation you can be proud of. A customer service environment that you can be proud of. So what you want to do is deal ethically with everybody. Your customers, your employees, your lenders, your investors, and I should have put on this slide, but I didn't, society in general, community. They are part of it too. They are part of what is typically called the stakeholders in the business. Keep your promises. Don't promise something if you can't make it so. When you're dealing with your employees, and we discussed this in Module 8B. Okay. Sorry, I lost my place in the notes. In Module 8B, we talked about setting expectations. All right? And if you remember, I said that you set expectations for your customers in terms of reliability and service. And if you don't do it, your competition will. Your investors, you set expectations for profits and growth. And again, what about the earnings forecast versus the actual results? And lastly, employees, promotions, careers, and raises. And I think I used the example of don't tell your employee they're going to get a raise in 6 months if you don't think you can do it. Be honest with them. Say, look, we will try. I will try my best. Business is bad right now. Hang in with us. If we can do it, if we are successful, you will be compensated, more than adequately. But don't do things you can't. Don't promise things that you can't do. In negotiating, okay, we talked about in Module 9B, we talked about making a fair deal. Both sides need to win. Okay? Collaborative or cooperative negotiations was the term, as opposed to a win-lose situation. Both sides need to come in. Look at the deal from their side. The old saying of walk a mile in the other person's moccasins to know where they're coming from. Again, fairness. We've talked about this in other contexts. Another thing we want to do is we want to be green. We want to have a social conscience. Again, I think in the international piece, we talked a little bit about avoiding exploiting labor, be it domestic or foreign, avoiding sweatshop suppliers. There are things called fair trade wages, the fair trade activity and branding label on things like bananas and coffee that indicate that this product is coming from suppliers who pay their workers a decent wage. It's important. You also need to have an environmental or nature conscience. Again, Whole Foods Corporation does very well selling products that come from a healthy, natural environment. Obviously, avoid chemical dumping, throwing, and we're not talking about, in this course, we're not talking about big corporations that are polluting the atmosphere or dumping tons of chemicals into the streams and rivers on a daily basis. We're talking about you and me, little guys. All right? But it's still a problem. What do you use to make your product? Do you use solvents? Do you use chemicals? Are you a print shop? And you flush or dump the inks and the printing materials down the sink and consequently into the system? Do you properly dispose of stuff that you need? Do you recycle? This is all part of it. Think about it. Think about how you are impacting the environment. If you're doing the right thing, it can be a competitive advantage. Consumers particularly like to do the right thing. Big companies do not need their suppliers, meaning you and me, do not need their suppliers being bad for the environment. Just like I said in the earlier slide, avoid suppliers that exploit labor or use child labor, the sweatshops. Well, your customers, if they're businesses, have the same mentality because they're under a whole lot of scrutiny these days. There are a lot of people out there in places like YouTube that, if they pick up that you're doing something wrong, they will tell lots and lots of people. That's, a problem. Take a look at Panera. Okay, it's kind of fast food, Panera Breads. They use chickens from Bell and Evans, and there's a website there, and you can go to that at your convenience, bellandevans.com, about chickens coming from a relaxed environment, stress-free environment. Supposedly it makes the chicken taste better. Does it? I don't know, but I like Panera Breads. I like Panera as a place to go for lunch, and their food is very good. Is it cheap? No. People are willing to pay a little bit more to help do the right thing. You want to show that you're better than your competitor. One of the things, again, mentioned in international, I think I also mentioned it in the legal piece, if you are going global, or conversely, if you are doing your small business in another country, okay, outside the USA, be aware that there are differences in business ethics. In the U.S., for example, and I know I've mentioned this as in one of the prior lectures, it is illegal to give a government official, be it a municipal zoning officer or a licensing person at the state level, any kind of gratuity, any kind of money in return for the services they're supposed to provide. It's called a bribe, and it is illegal. But as I mentioned, in other countries, that is considered standard business practice. Likewise, in many companies, if you give a manager, a purchasing agent, a gift of more than very nominal value, it is considered unethical and could subject that person, that employee, that purchasing agent, for example, to being reprimanded or even fired. However, again, in certain other cultures, giving gifts, such as in Japan, when you go on a business visit, it is entirely proper and expected that you will bring gifts, and the value of the gift you bring increases with the level of the person that you're giving it to. So the big boss, gets the biggest, most expensive gift, and his or her lower level people get smaller gifts. But again, be aware of the differences in cultures if you're doing business in an international environment. You want to be truthful in your advertising, your marketing, your sales. Don't tell the person that the product can do something that it can't. Again, prior lectures we talked about legitimacy. You know, is this stuff on cable TV the slicer and dicer and other products for $19.95? Buy one today and we'll send you another one. We'll send you this free thing along with it. Don't get an image that you're phony. Don't misrepresent the capabilities. Now, one of the things that you have to do, though, is understand misrepresentation. There's also a concept called puffing. Puffing comes from a traditional sales environment and has to do with a salesperson making claims, but they're not really misrepresentation. For example, this particular soft drink is the best you've ever tasted. Well, maybe it's not. Is that misrepresentation? Or is that just puffing, an opinion? This is made from the, Snapple, made from the greatest stuff on earth. Okay, what's the greatest? What's the best? So, again, value judgments are typically not considered specifications. However, on the other hand, don't tell somebody that this particular product, whatever it is, a piece of equipment or electronics, will function at temperatures as low as 30 degrees below 0 Fahrenheit if it can't. Because somebody may depend upon that piece of equipment in an environment that's running at that temperature and could cause a lot of problems. You can use the don't ask, don't tell scenario. I'm sure you know what that is. But again, make sure it's not critical to the product's use or the safety of the people involved. If if it's not relevant to the use of the product, for example, if it's a product that you normally would not get wet, maybe you don't have to say, well, don't leave this out in the rain because it'll melt or deteriorate or the colors will run. But again, if it's something that could conceivably be used outside, maybe you have to. Unfortunately, things are getting worse in terms of putting warnings and that on. We talked about this in the legal issues lecture. I mentioned about product warnings and labels on the products. Hot coffee, yeah, I would hope so. You wouldn't think that you would have to put that on a container or a cup of coffee. But these days, I guess you have to err on the side of being cautious and tell people everything that they may possibly use the product for. Don't give this thing to a small child under 3 because it's got small parts. In the old days, parents were responsible for their kids. Nowadays, you as the vendor, you as the producer, have to bear some responsibility. To kind of sum it up, you want to be honest with everybody. Talked about don't set wrong expectations. Again, talked about that a little earlier. Don't set wrong expectations for anybody. Don't cover up bad results. Don't use what I talked about in the finance piece about pro forma financial statements having a bad connotation, because while pro forma should be a first cut, a first draft for form, pro forma for form, companies were manipulating the books, cooking the books, it was the term, by leaving out certain things. The Network Associates financial report that left out the McAfee piece so that it misrepresented how well or poorly the company was doing. Don't do that. Tell the truth even if it's bad. Of course, you can try to put a positive spin on it. Again, setting expectations. Where, we lost only $2 million this quarter. We're doing better. Last quarter we lost $3 million. We're getting better. Yeah, we're getting better. We're still bleeding to death, but we're bleeding to death more slowly. I think I said that in a prior lecture. So again, you can put a positive spin on it. Bottom line, be truthful, honest, fair, and build a reputation on that. Okay, there are two pieces of supplemental reading. Capitalism with the Human Face, about social entrepreneurs. Interesting article that just came out December 2008, and one about social responsibility, going green. Just a couple of short articles about the green side of this. Again, there was a posting on ethical dilemmas. Our next module, we're going to look at stock options and going public and alternatives. Don't forget to get the business plan done, the elevator pitch done. It is due very shortly. So please join me in Module 12